Good evening, everyone. This is Juan Catamayo, JCT for Education for you. And today we are live. We have an exciting topic. A lot of people have been asking me about applying to the UK, and we have an extraordinary guest coming up very shortly. It's 1 o'clock right now in the UK, so I want to thank our guest. But first of all, I want to say that you can follow us on YouTube as well. Just subscribe, click the little bell, and just enjoy the videos that we have housed here. This video will be housed on IGTV and also will be mothered to YouTube and social media as well. So if you are interested in different topics, let us know. This is a topic that never gets old. Students are moving right now from junior year to senior year, from 10, 11, 12, and they are planning ahead. Actually, I was talking to a family yesterday, and they want to learn more about studying in the UK. We're going to invite very shortly. Right here we see Rebecca. Rebecca, hello, my friend. Hope you're well. And let's have a lot of questions here coming up. So let's get our guest. Let's wake him up right now. And 1 second. Give me a second. Let's invite him over. Famous. He's called the University Guy. And we will ask him why is he called the University Guy. So we're live here from Boca Raton, Miami, South Florida. David, how are you, my friend?
I'm very well. How are you, amigo?
How is everything in the UK?
It's dark. I say that. It's a bit early here, but no, we're doing okay, thank you.
I do apologize for waking you up so early. It's 1 o'clock in the morning for you.
My pleasure. You are the only person I know in Florida who I would do this for. Well, maybe there's one other person.
Well, you earned your place here in South Florida, so anytime you want to come with your family, you're welcome to come.
Oh, I wish we could go anywhere at the moment, Juanca.
I know it's been very hard. I just got my sister home after a year not seeing her. She flew from Mexico and is happy to have family at home. So I know the feeling.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. How are your daughters?
We're doing very well, thank you. Yeah. I mean, I've seen a lot of them for the last year, which is lovely, and doing as well as anyone can be. We've been very blessed that things have not affected us too badly.
So for those of you watching David Hawkins, he actually lives, what about, how far from London?
I live about an hour's train from London, so I live in the town well, city I won't ask you to spell, of Leicester.
Okay. And he has 3 lovely daughters. How old are they now? I haven't seen them in a while, like 2 years.
They are 10, almost 11, 8 and 6. So yeah.
Well, they're keeping you busy. Still online education?
Yeah, we're doing our best. We're coping with it all. So yeah, doing okay.
Okay. Well, David, for our audience, just to educate a little bit of who you are, David Hawkins and I, we had the opportunity to work together for a committee for International ACAC. That's where we became very good friends. He's also a very well-known independent counselor in Europe and around the world. Everybody, when we have questions about Europe, particularly the UK and the complexity, we always think about David. Please follow him on Instagram, the University Guy. He's on Twitter. He's a big social media, also on LinkedIn. Graduated from University of Oxford, MA in history, and then he went for his secondary history graduate degree, University of Bristol again. And David, you went to one of the schools that most around the world would love to attend. How did you ended up attending University of Oxford?
It was one of the things. I mean, you say that everyone would love to attend. I'm not sure everyone would do if they start to look
Beautiful
at
place.
It's a beautiful university. This is where one of the key differences of US versus UK university comes into it. And forgive me, Juan Camilo, you heard me say this many times before, but I think for people listening in, it's a new thing. We talk about university like it's the same around the world, and it's not. There's an analogy that we use a lot at the University Guys to try and explain this, and that university is a word that means different things depending on where you are in the world, and a similar word is football. And where you are now, if you describe the game of football, you'd be thinking of a very different game that I would be thinking about if I'm describing the game of what we call football here. And that's a big difference in the university things. And so I wouldn't say I wanted to go to Oxford. I would say I wanted to study history. And that's a big difference in terms of how you think about applying to universities in different parts of the world. In that I really loved history. It was my thing. It was a thing I was passionate about. I ended up teaching it, as you just mentioned. So I wanted to go and study history in the way I thought I could do the most history and be most involved in it. And for me, the University of Oxford, with its particular teaching style, suited me. And I was very fortunate enough to go through the selection procedure and get a place. I probably would have still been very happy studying history at other universities, which is a different mindset from the US one, in which case, well, I pick the culture of a university and go for that. So I love the study of history. Oxford itself, it was a bit full on. It was very hard work. You don't get the same kind of wraparound services that you might get at a nice US college. And certainly the quality accommodation was not like it. I remember distinctly in my first year, the plants that grew through the sink in the bathroom that I shared with about a dozen other people.
I see. So right before we were coming into the live, we were talking about you graduated with an MA. Could you explain that you'll be attending an institution and you already have an MA? How many years did it take you compared to the US?
Well, this is where you get into the fact that the UK is a very, very old place, and there are lots of things which just happen because they just happen. There's no real rhyme nor reason behind it. So I did a 3-year undergraduate degree, which is obviously a year shorter than the US degree. And in most places in the United Kingdom and indeed in Europe, that 3-year degree is going to award you a bachelor's degree, which I had for a number of years. I'm graduating from the university, and then a few years after graduating, you've then been sort of long enough since you started at the university and then say, would you like to pay some money and turn this into a master's degree? Which I did. And so now don't have a bachelor's degree, I have an Oxford master's degree. One of the tricks, actually, if you are looking at people's resumes from the UK, if it only says MA after their name, then typically they went to university in Scotland or they went to Oxford or Cambridge. So it's just a historical quirk about these universities. But if you think new college at Oxford, the idea of it being new is fantastic because it was new because it was set up after the Black Death,
Okay.
Which is quite a way ago, but it was new then. Now, many, many hundreds of years later, we could still call it new college. In fact, it's extraordinarily old, and that just goes to show how old these universities are.
So, David, how old were you when you were so convinced that you were going to study history? And
Yeah, probably I would say from about 10th grade onwards. So I was doing my GCSEs here. And it's a cultural thing a bit in the UK because going through the system, through high school, that you are going to have to pick something to study at university. So the kind of system is designed a little bit to help you identify that. Bear in mind that most students studying in the UK, certainly in England, Wales and Northern Ireland, will be, for their last 2 years of high school, for 11th and 12th grade, only studying 3 classes. That's what the A-level system forces you to do those things. So when I was a high school counsellor in the UK, a lot of the work I was doing would be help students to identify what they might want to study at university so they can choose the appropriate A-levels to be eligible for that. So that was the point where I was really getting into history. And so then you're making choices for your A-levels that would support that. I was interested in languages and politics and culture and these kind of things, but it was very much in a historical mindset. So I guess I was interested in it, but the choices I had to make forced me to become more interested in something.
okay, and did you have an opportunity to do a career evaluation while you were in high school?
That's a good question. I'm pretty certain we would have done something. I was fairly set on what I wanted to do. Ironically, now, since I'm not doing what I thought I wanted to do, but I wanted to be a teacher.
Okay.
It looked like good fun. My teachers seemed to enjoy themselves, and I liked school. I was one of those slightly geeky kids, people who will know me would say. I enjoyed school, so I thought I would study something and go back to school and teach it. So if we did, I probably ignored it because I kind of knew what I was going to do, and I did end up doing it for many years.
Okay, so let's run a case study here very quickly. Student that loves politics, international relations, history, journalism, and he wants to study in the UK. What would you advise him or her to apply for the UCAS? When you put those 5 schools in the UCAS, which program would you recommend that student?
Yeah, well, I think that, I mean, we're trying to shortcut it. Something like international relations would potentially, off the top of my head, be a good idea. But this is where the counselling comes in. I know it's something you and your team do at JCT for education. You've got to delve into what is this subject choice. We use a tool called the Moresby profile. It's very well used around the world to help us try and work out what a student might be interested in, and to help students understand the range of things that are out there. It's so complicated. The student who's coming from a completely different system, like the idea, if you're used to American football and we suddenly stick you on a soccer pitch, you're going to be slightly confused. We have to try to help you navigate those differences. So in that thing, I maybe start with something, but probably want to introduce the students to a load of things that they've never heard of. One of the fun things about doing this job is that you're learning every day. You always discover new things, new opportunities, new programs at universities.
Okay, so let's continue with this case study. So the student is trying to discover those areas of studies during the summertime. So the big question is, how are the residential summer programs doing in the UK? Are they many available, or it's gonna be tough for residential summer programs? What alternatives do we have?
Yeah, so first thing I say that we don't massively have a culture in the UK of doing summer programs.
Yes.
I struggle with my British students who I'm advising to study in the United States. This idea of like, I have to do something this summer. Really, it's not. We don't have this culture of going to camp and these kind of things. Mainly because of the nature of the degree structure is that you would be applying for something, so just go and do more of that subject. Because it is big business, internationally it's big business, there are a lot of people that do it. I would say be a little cautious about assuming because a summer course is run at a university, that is just run by the university. There are great summer providers who are hiring out the colleges at Oxford and Cambridge and various other places, and they're great programs. But I'm speaking to an awful lot of students who tell me, oh, I did the Oxford summer program. There isn't an Oxford summer program.
Mm-hmm.
It was at Oxford. Oh, well, I was in Oxford College, I know, but it had nothing to do with the university. Universities and indeed boarding schools are advertising summer programs as, hopefully that they'll be in person. I don't know whether it will be or not. I would make sure that you've got a very, very strong cancellation policy, because I just don't know whether we can predict whether people will be coming here or not.
Okay, and how is the situation right now around the country in terms of COVID, and how is everything down there as of right now?
Yeah, so I mentioned it earlier. One of the things to understand in the UK is we've got actually 4 nations making up one country. So works differently in which part of the United Kingdom that you are in. On the whole, we are stepping back out of a national lockdown, which has been in place since just after Christmas. Schools are reopening next week for everybody, or physically reopening. And then we have sort of 5-week stages where potentially we're getting back to being able to do many more things. And it's all because really of the vaccine rollout. We're very lucky that we've had the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine approved here, the Pfizer vaccine as well, others coming on stream. And it's just quite odd seeing on social media, seeing some of our friends around the world, people yours and my age who are getting the vaccines, whereas here in the UK, it's very much age driven.
Yes.
So it started with sort of over 80s, over 75s, over 70s. I think we're just getting to the over 60s at the moment. So I'll be towards the back of the queue somewhere, but ideally in the summer I may be vaccinated, but the signs here are all very positive, but I don't think anyone's taking anything for granted right now.
Okay, thank you, David. And so when do you think the vaccine will be coming for the age group that you're in? 2 months, 3 months?
June, maybe July. Yeah, something like that, I would imagine. Depends on things, but I am, touch wood, not someone in a priority group, so I don't mind being at the back of the queue.
Okay, same here, man. Same here. Now let's go back to our case study. The student wants to pick. He has to apply to the UCAS. UCAS, an extraordinary website, is the equivalent of the common application here in the United States. So the UCAS allows you. Tell us how many schools allows you to, and a little bit of the technicality of the UCAS. When can one student apply? If they're applying to a top university, what are the deadlines, and so forth. So walk us through this process, because there are a lot of people that are going to be watching here. It's the first time. They don't know much about applying to the UK. Thank you.
Got it. So I'd say UCAS, it's not just an application platform equivalent to Common App or Coalition. It's a whole kind of ecosystem to do with everything to do with universities. And we have a very centralized system for university admissions in the UK. So UCAS, you can apply for all types of different things, not just going to university. There's a huge amount of resources. They run conventions and conferences and all these things. It's just a big beast of an organization. I was presenting at a conference virtually earlier yesterday, with the chief executive, and it's a big thing. In terms of the application bit of it, so the mechanics of applying are actually relatively straightforward. You can apply to 5 choices. Now, typically those will be 5 of the same subject across 5 different universities, but they don't have to be in order to do those things. I'm going to wave and say hello to Brandy. So
hey, Brandy.
Waving the heart.
And Susie in Guatemala. Hello.
Hey, Susie. So the process whereby you would apply, you'd already have identified what you want to apply for and where do you want to apply for it, even before you kind of go into the UCAS platform. And then when you are going into what we would call UCAS Apply, which is the bit, obviously, that you would apply through the platform, the student's going to enter in a couple of bits of information. There's all the biographical things, who are you, where do you live, what's your residential status, date of birth, all these kind of categories in there as well. You're going to enter an academic history of what have you been studying, where have you been studying it, and also potentially what are you continuing to study. And in there, you'll be putting in about externally assessed exams that you're doing as well. And then you will write your personal statement, which is a 47-line piece of writing, extraordinarily dry, focused on the course that you're applying for. Then if you're applying independently, you will give the details to a reference writer who will add information about your academics, matching what you've got, and add their reference. If you're applying to a high school that's a UCAS centre, they will kind of do that automatically. So that's the kind of the bones of the application. In terms of the deadlines, if you're applying for one of the courses which will have an additional round of selection, rather than just the UCAS application, then you'll have an earlier deadline. For Oxford and Cambridge, who have tests and who interview, and for medicine, vets and dentistry, that's an October the 15th deadline. Some creative courses also have an earlier deadline. And then for most other courses, you're going to see what we call a fair consideration deadline, which is normally, it was pushed back for 2 weeks because of the pandemic. People can still apply afterwards. It just means that the universities don't necessarily have to give you fair consideration. And various of the stages as you go on, but typically very centralized, not a massive amount of information that you're providing. October the 15th for the early application, January the 15th for almost everything else.
Okay, so right now, if we have students that want to apply, they still have time. Of course, they're not going to be able to apply to those schools that have deadlines, but are they still open for application?
Yeah. I mean, and so it depends a little bit on what you're looking to do. I mean, universities will continue to accept applications as much as they can do. Right now, we've opened up a thing called UCAS Extra, which is a slightly different process. If you had applied and you haven't got any options, then you can apply one by one. But yes, universities at courses which are not likely to fill can still apply. The UCAS website, to say it's this massive ecosystem, it's also the searchable database of courses. You can find and go onto search.ucas.com and tick for which universities still have vacancies, and you'll find you can still apply for those. People can apply through August for options. We have a whole process that starts in mid-August called clearing, where basically universities that need students and students that need universities do a whole kind of dating game and find that they suddenly are falling in love with each other.
Thank you, David. I want to take a second to say hi to Mike Mora, Alejandra Valencia, Niraj. He's watching from India, our good friend. And then we have Monica Orlish in Costa Rica. Welcome to all of you. We're here with David Hawkins. So, David, let's get now more technical. So we have different systems around the world. We have A-levels, we have AWO, MAWO, we have also, I have it here, IB. We also have APs. So and we have the system from binational schools. They don't have none of these systems. So I went to a binational school. So let's say that a student from my high school that still doesn't have any of these platforms, but it's a very rigorous course. How do I apply if I don't have those credentials? What will I have to do a foundation year first in the UK before I can move into my main program?
Potentially, yes. So universities will publish on their websites their entry requirements for different parts of the world. And I'm a big believer in college counselling. You've got to work out what is the system designed for. The UK model of higher education is assuming, like I described a few minutes ago, that you have done a relatively narrow curriculum for your last 2 years of high school. That's why we can have a 3-year bachelor's degree without gen eds and core curriculum and stuff, because you are able to step straight from high school into studying that subject straight at college. That therefore means the universities have to know that you know enough stuff.
Yes.
Yeah. So for me, it's like history. Okay, it was being able to read and write to a high level. There wasn't necessarily a prerequisite. Imagine an engineer. You are going straight into day one of an engineering course where there is no soft landing. They're going to need to know you know enough maths and physics to do it. And so that in the UK model is worked out for your A levels, IB, Scottish Highers, those kind of things. So that is then translated to other systems around the world. And unfortunately, there are some high school credentials that UK universities over time have looked at and thought, you just don't know enough stuff when you graduate from that high school diploma, or it's not assessed in a way that's standardized and externally corroborated that we can say that what you know is going to mean that you can be successful on this course. So in those circumstances, people then need to look for other credentials. Before the College Board decided to rationalise its product line, I said, well, subject tests are a really great way for anyone to do this. SAT subject tests were great and accessible, but unfortunately those things no longer exist, which is interesting for an organisation supposedly committed to access, but that's a whole different side. But APs still exist. But if that's not the route you want to go, then yes, foundation programs in the UK, 1 year of college. Actually, in a lot of places around the world, you go to university for 1 year, that can potentially give you access to the UK as well.
Okay, so let's step there for a second for foundation. I still want to go to the UK. I am willing to go for that year foundation. The year foundation is housed by the university, or these are organizations that are running those foundation programs? And what's the guarantee? Let's say that if I want to go to UCL or your alma mater or King's or you name it.
Okay, so foundation is a term that covers an awful lot of sins. So it could be all those things. Some are run by universities. Some are contracted by universities to be run by a private provider, which may be at the same place as the university, may be slightly separate. And there are an awful lot of kind of sort of high schools, but almost what we call a study centre, where you can do a foundation there. I'd say broadly speaking, you've got a foundation is going to be one of 3 different options. You've got a foundation that's designed for students who are academically prepared to study the subject, but don't have the academic level of English. So maybe you're really talented at maths and physics, but you've done it in Spanish or Portuguese. Your academic English isn't there. So that is a foundation that might be provided to be able to teach you to study in English and get the academic content. You have the opposite, where students, English is great, they can study, but they just haven't got the level of content in the subjects they want to go to. So there's a slightly different foundation there. And the third one is the students who are kind of a mix between the two. You need some kind of combination for those as well. Now, those can be delivered all sorts of different ways in different universities and in different kind of study centres doing it. Some have guaranteed progression. Some don't. Some are conditional things. The only ones where you would absolutely see, unless you really do badly, there's guaranteed progression, is actually what we wouldn't call a foundation. It's what we would call a year 0 degree. And so this is where you are applying to a course at a university. It's a 3 or a 4 year bachelor's degree, and they're adding year 0 before it. So you were therefore kind of expected to progress as long as you maintain some satisfactory standards.
Okay. Now, we have a lot of students in Latin America, North America, that's where I am located, that they hold UK passports, okay?
Yes.
And they have A levels, or they might have IB, or you name it, APs. They qualify. Tell us about their fees. How much will they be paying? Hence, they are accepted at UCL or University of Bristol, Manchester. What are their fees?
Well, I would say, unfortunately, and this may be news for some people, having a UK passport doesn't make the blindest bit of difference in terms of what you pay. The UK is one of those countries where it's residency plus citizenship.
Okay.
So you may be aware, so, someone's got an EU passport, you can study in places like the Netherlands. Doesn't matter. Whether you've lived to pay taxes there, the passport is enough. That is not the case in the UK. It'll make it easier for, you won't need a visa. It would make it easier in terms of working and things afterwards. But in terms of fees, if you have not been resident, I mean, right now, post-Brexit, it's restricted to the UK. If you've not been here for the 3 years immediately preceding the start date of the course, you are paying international fees. Even if the case, if you've been here all the way through your education and then you'd left for the year before, so are you international. Now, there are some nuances and things in there. If it's a temporary posting or you're working for the British government or things, it can be different.
Okay.
So you are paying an international fee. Now, that international fee will be decided by the university. And broadly speaking, you've got to think of a range. If it's a course that's cheap to teach, hello history, books, go and read some books, in a part of England where it's relatively cheap to live, then yeah, the fees could be comparable to fees for a home student, £9,000–10,000 a year. If it's an extraordinarily expensive course to teach, say like medicine, at a really expensive place to run a university like Cambridge or Edinburgh or London, then it could be £50,000 a year. And a sort of scale in between.
Okay. And that's really, really interesting to see the price, because a lot of people might think you have that passport, so I can't come back. But the 3-year residency, it makes sense that you have to pay taxes, so you can get that benefit.
Yeah, exactly. There is for people, British citizens who are living in the EU post Brexit, there is a sort of 7-year window since the UK formally transitioned out. So there is some nuance in here as well, but as broadly speaking, British passport doesn't mean you get home fees.
Okay. We have a question here. Do you think there will be a change with Brexit?
Not for British passport holders around the world, unfortunately not. The change that we've seen with Brexit is EU students used to be counted as British students in terms of home fees and things, and now they're not. A British student living in the EU, I say, has this kind of 7-year grace period where they're still going to count, up to, of course, starting 1st September 2028. But no, the UK is a heavily subsidised university experience by government, and the kind of philosophy here is, and I think it's got very broad political agreement, is you haven't been paying into the tax pot. It's not really fair that you get the access to the subsidised fees.
And what about for UK students wanting to go to Germany, the Netherlands, and so forth? Are they going to be doing a reciprocal treaty or not?
No.
Okay.
No, it's subject to also, because it's, in the EU law, without getting into the weeds of it all, it's to do with welfare payments and access to this kind of stuff. So,
okay.
no, unfortunately, there are, again, some circumstances where it can work differently. But on the whole, no. Germany's not, I say, Germany's free or almost cheap, without any relevance to your passport. You could be from the other side of the planet and have no relationship to Germany, and there still might be free to study at university there.
So I have an admission question, and I was an admission officer for 17 years. Yeah. I have a UK passport. I live in Colombia. I go to a binational school. I don't go to an international school. Do I have to take a standardized English test or not?
Do you have to take it? It will depend on a number of different factors. I mean, certainly for visa purposes, you wouldn't need to take it because you've got the British passport, so you don't need the visa in order to enter the country. Depending on what you're kind of applying for and at which level of university, you might or you might not. What I would also always say in that circumstances, though, is you probably should, even if you don't have to take it, you probably should take something for proof of English for 2 reasons. Firstly, it's actually going to be a good indication to you as an applicant as to how good your academic English is. We have the sort of the opposite situation sometimes. We have a lot of students here who might be nationals of another country and say, I want to go and study in Spain in Spanish or in France in French. And I go, well, you can speak it, but can you actually do it academically? Could you take your last paper you've written at high school, write it in the other language and get the same grade? So doing an English test for a student there might, yes, you speak it with friends and family. You might have done a bit of your high school in it, but actually get a sense of really what your standard is. Because what you don't want to do is be admitted to a university and find that you're actually not good enough and fail out. The second thing I would say is, even if you don't necessarily need it, it might make you look like a stronger applicant to a UK university. If you've got a really strong score, it can be. As you go to the more selective universities with the more selective courses, you will find pretty rigorous standards for what they might need for IELTS, TOEFL, Duolingo, Passport, Cambridge English, all these kind of things.
Okay, so I have the case. How is Duolingo taken right now in the UK for a lot of universities?
It's growing. The pandemic helped them in many ways because people needed access to testing. It's growing. I don't think you'll find overwhelming familiarity with it. It's worth double checking. I wouldn't assume that it's going to be available. And certainly if you are going to need something for visa purposes, bear in mind there's a specific test, the UK VI version of IELTS, the UK Visas and Immigration. And so you and I both know, and we hear regularly of stories where students haven't taken the right English test. They're admitted, but they can't get the visa. So Duolingo can work. But I mean, as with anything in our line of work, do your due diligence. Find out everything you need to know before you then start to do your applications, because you might find that actually you want to apply to an obscure university who've never heard of Duolingo and they don't know whether they've accepted it or not. It would be silly then to risk that place.
Of course, and I have a student right now. He's struggling because he's applying one of your top universities in the UK and they don't accept Duolingo, they don't take TOEFL, and they take a very particular IELTS. And he took the wrong IELTS. So now trying to get an appointment with the British Council so he can go. And this country is, I mean, in South America and Venezuela, is extremely hard to take the test. He's the #1 of his class. I mean, we've done everything. He's done everything, written to the embassy, written to a lot of folks, and it's almost impossible. So hopefully institutions in the UK will be
I hope so. The issue probably is, and I mean, you've worked in universities, you understand this. You don't mess with the immigration people. Mm-hmm. That is the thing. And this, what you're describing there probably isn't an admissions thing. That the university are probably very happy to admit him. The problem is that the status that they would need to prove back to the British government that they can sponsor for a visa. And unfortunately, there were some very bad actors a number of years ago who were using universities as a sort of backdoor to immigrate to the UK. There were some horrible scandals, some really difficult situations, and the government really locked down. For certain courses in the UK, you must have the IELTS UK VI because it's got a significantly higher level of security. A high level of security means it's quite hard to find a place where you can do it. But this is why that due diligence is really important in advance.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. And you touch upon that one. That's the first thing that we tell students right away. Let's get clearance with English as a second language test, the IELTS, the technical one with the higher security, so they can get it out of the way, get that 7.5. Remember, there are scores in every section, so make sure that you get those sub scores. Now, so we went through all the requirements. We went through the college essay, 47 lines, very academic. We went through, you send your scores, your high school degree. You go through all the requirements, but there is one thing. Students, once they're in the UK and they're studying their program, they want to work or they want to do an internship or they want to stay. Here in the United States, we have the option of practical training, what we call the OPTs, for 1 year or 2 years if you're doing a STEM. Walk us through the internship and job opportunities for international students in the UK.
Well, I mean, again, the first thing I say is internship is actually, again, not a massively common thing historically in the UK. It's changed in recent times, but it's not, again, the expectation of what you would necessarily be doing at university. Everyone's going off, popping off doing internships. And the idea of a co-op model of university is just completely alien to what we would do. You can find degrees that we call a sandwich course, lovely British phrase here, where a 3-year degree becomes a 4-year degree, and normally year 3 is spent out on placement with an employer. So those kind of opportunities come into it. The UK, for a number of years, had removed a post-study work option. It harmed the UK sector very badly. And so the new, what's called the student route for visa, does actually now entitle students to stay for 2 years for post-study work. That's something that's just kind of ticking through now. The law changed sort of 8, 9 months ago to have that. So there is an opportunity to stay. Now, after that, you will need to be sponsored for a visa and all the kind of stuff, exactly the same as other parts of the world.
So the sponsorship must be like here. Right now it's very challenging in the US.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I mean, the same here. You'd have to prove to, employer would be able to have to prove to the immigration authorities that they were offering you a job that they couldn't offer to somebody who, wasn't already with a legal right to be in the UK. Now, if you've been working for someone for 2 years, then that's much easier to prove.
So you remember, did you graduate in May or June from Oxford?
Well, so I actually had my graduation in October. But this is, again, the different model is that we don't really have that kind of idea of graduating. I did my exams. I left. I got my results. I found out my results on a library computer screen in Mid Devon where I was living at the time, because in Oxford, they stick your results up on a building on paper, and some kind of person took a photo of it and posted it online, so you could see that. Graduation is a thing that's quite often detached from the experience of UK university. So students will probably book into their graduation. I booked into mine with a few friends at a period that was suitable for us.
Okay, so commencement different, but
Yeah.
I want to get, where my point that I want to get is, international students, once they say, "Here's your diploma," how many days do you have for departure?
Well, so you could stay automatically for 2 years with this visa for the graduate route, but your visa will have an end date on it.
Okay.
And so when you're given a visa, it will tell you the date you're supposed to be gone.
Okay, perfect. Now, students that want to enhance their English skills, ESL programs, and so forth, what's the word right now in terms of getting approval for that visa? I mean, the regular age, 18, 19, 20 years old, are they extremely cautious right now with 24, 25-year-old people? And because they also want to do their graduate degree. So tell us a little bit about ESL programs in the UK.
Yeah, so a lot of this will then be devolved to the institution who are doing it. It's big business for the UK as it is for the United States to bring people in. So the institution you're going to study with, and if it's just a small summer program, they will potentially be taking on responsibility for sponsoring you for a visa. So that would be the process where you would go through there. If it's a short course, you might not necessarily need a visa to come, depending on which part of the world you're coming from. It depends on the institution that you're going to. And each of them will have their own guidance about what they can and can't sponsor you for.
Okay. Now I have two specific questions here. Medical school, international students.
Yes.
How difficult it is for an international student to get into a medical program?
Extraordinarily so, but then it should be. I mean, and it's extraordinarily difficult for domestic students as well.
Yes.
I mean, this is one of those fascinating things. I know you will have these conversations. Sometimes you get the family coming. I had one relatively recently speak to me, and the subtext of the conversation is, my child's not doing very well at school. They want to be a doctor. Please help. And the way I always rephrase that is, if you walked into a hospital, a family doctor, at some point, and the GP said, I didn't do very well at school, but I found a really obscure way to qualify as a doctor. Would you like me to treat you? You're probably not going to stay to be treated necessarily by that person. It is the profession that we want to be extraordinarily hard to get into of all other professions. I guess maybe rocket scientists as well, but we want our doctors to be highly qualified. So it is hard to get into. It's got harder this year in the UK, apart from for a couple of medical programs which are only designed for international applicants. At the publicly funded ones, medicine numbers for non-UK students are capped as a proportion, 7.5%. So you've got 100 spots for domestic students, you can only have 7.5% of those can be for internationals. Now, because of Brexit, EU students who were counted as the domestic numbers now count as international. And even if that's only another 1,000 people, that's 1,000 fewer, 1,000 more competition. And then, people may be paying attention to the World Health Care's in the news quite a lot right now, and more people have wanted to be doctors. So we actually had a 22% rise in applicants to medical school in the UK this year. So there's just more competition for fewer spaces. So yeah, it's tough.
Okay, I want to stop by and say hi to Carlos Mario, Marcela, and also our colleague in Brazil, Emily Dobson. Hello, Emily. Good
I
to
am.
see you here. Thank you so much. Law. So, but one question. Do you take medical prospects in
We
your
do.
practice?
Yes, we do. Though again, we'll have to be very honest about the chances here. We tend to encourage people to be thinking about a couple of countries for medicine. Um, so we work with a student at the moment who's had an interview at St Andrews, which is fantastic. To get a medical interview is a big deal, and also an interview at Trinity College in Dublin.
Okay.
Um,
So
and we're actually seeing,
if I have any
so
prospects, I will send them your way.
we're happy to help.
Okay, perfect. Now, law. Walk us through the law process. A law degree.
Okay, so actually quite complicated. We've got a conference we're hosting in a couple of weeks' time. We're calling kind of highly selective UK admissions. So for counsellors, not for parents and students, but looking at Oxford medicine law. Law covers a lot of bases in different ways in the UK. So um, you can study law direct from high school. That might be the route for you, but equally you can study something else. I have friends who studied history with me at Oxford who then went on to convert into law in a similar way to the USA. So the question, first of all, is do you want to be a lawyer or do you want to work in the law? And those are not necessarily the same answer.
Correct.
And that might gear you to different ways because in order to become a lawyer, certainly in the UK model, you're going to need to have what's called a qualifying law degree, which enables you to go into solicitor training or barrister training. Those things are also going to be dependent on your visa status because you study UK law, it's not US law, it's not Colombian law. So you've got to think about that kind of stuff. Then, once you've identified the kind of law you want to do, then you'll understand, well, in what way do I want to learn law? And if you're going to traditional old places, you know, Oxford and Cambridge, for example, it's going to be an awful lot of legal theory and history and law cases and stuff. And therefore, you'll find that some of those selection procedures will be designed to assess this kind of stuff. Cambridge has its own test for entry for law. There's an exam called the LNAT, which some other law programs will ask you to take. And other places will just admit you. But you need to understand what kind of law career you might want to have.
Awesome. I see a message here from DJ Palindro. You recognize him?
It's Jorge Delgado.
Jorge Delgado. Jorge, hello, my friend. Hello, our friends at JCT for Education, Leti Capriles, Natalia's Fine Art. And question for you, study abroad students in the United States, they are already enrolled at universities here in the United States, and they want to attend institutions like yours or other institutions of study abroad. What is your recommendation and what year, being here a US student in college, should they go to the UK?
Yeah, I mean, so most of this is done as a bilateral exchange. So it's a university in the US has a partnership with the university in the UK, and that process will work through. A lot of people want to come to Oxford and Cambridge for a year abroad. They don't take it unless there's really a deal with the university that you are at. So you need to investigate those kind of things. And I would also focus being at Oxford and Cambridge as opposed to being in Oxford or Cambridge. Some students can find themselves being deceived by some very clever marketing, that kind of stuff. And just actually, are you a student at the university? Normally, in our model, it would be the third year. So if you were going to have a year abroad, it would be a third year, and you'd add then a fourth year to your degree for that kind of stuff. And you would be exchanging with someone. If you are in the US, you've got the raw end of that deal because our student here in the UK is probably, well, they are nominally paying £9,250. They're actually probably paying nothing because they're going to pay it back to the government afterwards. And they're getting your 60, 70, 80,000 US dollar experience. You're paying that amount of money and you are not getting that money's worth of experience over here.
Correct. And actually, I know Leti Capriles, her daughter, one of her daughters is in Spain, so she can actually do her study abroad. University of Navarra. So for
Yes.
Navarra, she actually can go to an international department and do an exchange program in the UK. So that would be really good. David, so a word of wisdom for parents that are watching right now. They're thinking about sending their son or daughters to the UK. For the students, what should they be doing right now? And actually, I see a population here of graduate students as well. So I loaded 3 questions. What do you think?
Yeah, so I think the first thing is, as ever, and I use this analogy of football and football. Not necessarily, just learn the rules of the game first. I mean, you and I are both, independent counsellors. We earn our living from helping people, but I don't think either of us will say that we have this secret body of information. We've done this for a lot and we know people, and the more you do it, the better you get at it. But you can get your head into this game. In the same way, if I was going to suddenly find myself, wanting to understand American football and learn what's going on in the NFL, I would learn about it. I would read things. I'd watch tutorial stuff. Do the same. So first of all, give yourself the information to make good choices. Don't assume that it works the same way as you're used to. That goes for undergrad and indeed for postgrad. Get your head into it. Then work out what you want to study, because that is the key choice in the UK. You might say, well, I really want to study business. I'm coming to the UK to study business. Well, you're not going to Oxford or Cambridge to study business because they don't offer it at the undergraduate level. Okay, well, if you really want business, then you're not going to be going there, and you'll be fine with that because that's what I want to study. So that would be the second thing I'd have a look at. Same at the postgraduate level. And then, as you were saying about your student with the IELTS issue, yes, do your due diligence. Go through dates and deadlines and paperwork and requirements and all this kind of stuff. Applying to university anywhere in the world is a lot of work. If you rush it, it's going to make you ill. It's just too much to do. If you take it calmly and carefully, and I use your analogy, Frank, a lot with families, we're like a traffic cop, stopping the crash happening and diverting people into different ways, and inserted into a family's life to stop teenagers shouting at parents, which I'm told when I'm about to have teenagers is something I have to watch out for. Make sure you're giving yourself enough time to do all these different bits of the process. So learn what the UK is all about, how our university system works, then work out what it is you want to study. And then from there, really build a plan. And if you can work through a plan, we've had a really lovely situation. Give a shout out to a mutual friend, Ken Dunbar, working at Widener University in Pennsylvania. He sent me a message on Facebook a couple of months ago. Former colleague of his is now a counsellor, has a student who's graduated from the wonderful Elon, wants to apply to grad school in the UK. Could I help? Yes, we could help. Over a number of calls over a period of weeks, sort of through Christmas into the new year, we identified where she wanted to go. We helped her with the references, so reference writing you want to do, helped her just polish her statement. She had applied to one course, she got an interview for that program, was admitted, is going to go and study luxury brand management at Goldsmiths, University of London. Very, very straightforward, yes. But she had to work out, first of all, what did she want to do? What do I need to get there? And then we just put the plan into action, and it was a pleasure. Very straightforward process.
Thank you so much. And for those parents that are watching, students, colleagues, high school counselors, I have seen independent counselors going through the chat, and the word of caution when you're hiring an independent counselor, make sure that you look at the memberships. Most of the colleagues that I have seen here, they have 2, 3, or 4 memberships: IECA, HECA, NACAC, CIS, SACAC, and so forth. So make sure that when you're visiting their websites, you're actually looking at memberships, and ask that question. David is my good person when I have challenging questions. I do my research before I call David. I say, David, I have a question about UCAS. Mostly it's UCAS technical questions. Sometimes we talk about essays and we like feedback, and I say, is this very academic and so forth. So make sure parents, students, that you're following also the guidelines, educating yourself who these independent counselors are working. David, Emily dumps here a really good question. Do you have a favorite university that's lesser known, and what's your hidden gem? That's a great question, Emily. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I'll come back to what I said at the start, because again, it's just the mindset of different places. I don't have a hidden gem university. I have hidden gem courses, because again, that is the way I was brought up to think about this. It's what you're going to study, not where you're going to study. I would say there is one university I'm desperate at some point to have a student apply to. I'd love to have a student apply to the University of the Highlands and Islands, way in the north of Scotland, because I've never had a student even look at that university. But in terms of courses, the UK has some amazing things. I'll pick 3 hidden gem courses that I think are really wonderful. South Devon College in the beautiful West Country of England, the place that was my home and I love and I miss, has a course called Operational Yacht Science. Wow. Where basically you get to mess around on a boat in a beautiful estuary down in South Devon, learning how to run super yachts, which is a pretty good degree and a pretty nice lifestyle to have. There's a lovely college in Sussex called Plumpton College, wonderful English name, which does degree in wine. So you can learn how to grow wine, how to market wine, how to drink wine, I would imagine. There's all those kind of stuff. So two slightly silly ones, but I've had students apply to and enjoy both of those courses in the past. One of the ones that I actually love, though, as a way, and I use this as a counselling point with families a lot, particularly in the current things, is the fact in the UK, because you're applying to something specific, there are going to be courses out there that you just don't know exist. And University College London, UCL, has a degree course called the Bioprocessing of New Medicines.
Wow.
Now, what is saving the world right now? It is bioprocessing new medicines. That is what we all desperate for people to do quickly. This degree has been sitting there at UCL for years and years and years. It's a great degree, but people don't know it's out there. It's business, it's logistics, it's pharmaceuticals, it's biomedicine, it's biochemistry, it's healthcare management. It's all this kind of stuff in a degree. I think that's just an example of how in this UK model you have to work out what do I want to study and what is properly out there. And I love having those conversations with students. In the same way as in the US, you might, mention a college to them and they fall in love with the college. In the UK model, so you mention a course to them and they can go, this is the course I want to study. I didn't know I could combine all these things together.
David, I had the honor to visit probably 22, 26 universities in the UK. How many college campuses have you visited total in the UK?
Oh, gosh. I mean, it's probably 40 or 50, I would say. Okay. A lot. Again, not necessarily the way we would do it. Again, I mean, I love going to visit colleges. I think anyone in college counselling loves doing it. And it's really nice to see places. You get a sense of the vibe. But again, it's not really part of the process. We don't talk about fit. People aren't necessarily, in the UK model, what do we talk about? We talk about how far away from home might you want to go. Normally people might go a couple of hours away from home. We have a very highly residential university experience here. Do you want to be in a campus? Do you want to be in a city? And what kind of city? But there's not really a lot of stuff. So it's not the idea of you need to, I remember visiting Rhodes College in Memphis, Tennessee, and then Millsaps down in Jackson. Those are really different institutions, and you've got to get there to get that vibe and what it's like.
Yes.
I visited University of Manchester and University of Liverpool.
Yes.
They're very similar institutions in cities that, yes, they have some cultural differences and they tend not to like each other, actually, but they're actually broadly similar cities. Yeah. And there's not really a lot else to find about between them. So I do like enjoying them, but no, it's a very different experience than visiting a US college.
I can't wait to go back to the time where we used to travel to visit colleges and universities. I was very impressed with where Anthony Hawkins went to school in Wales, Royal Art Academy. I think I'm saying that well.
Yeah, Welsh Academy,
Welsh Academy. And then I remember visiting University of Cardiff. It was impressive how they design satellites and how they help.
Beautiful school.
Them. I love that campus. So for Emily, there are so many good campuses, universities in the UK. But David, I know for you it's almost 2 o'clock in the morning in the UK. I know you need to go back to bed for a couple of hours, but you always enlighten us with new information, the latest, and we're so proud of you, the university guy. How did you come out with that logo, the university guy?
It kind of, I mean, you've stolen the number, so JCT for education. It's an odd. I mean, you and I have made this transition into different things. I was a high school counsellor against this. You very kindly mentored and advised me. And this is a whole other session about being an independent counsellor. You got to find something you feel comfortable with. I think a lot of us have different levels of comfort with the business side of this kind of stuff. It was a sort of joke for my kids and friends and people that, we don't do college counselling in the UK. I think my family still struggle to understand how I earn a living. But I know about universities. I'm the guy who knows about universities. I mean, this is my office. Look around. I've got pennants and everything kind of here. I really geek out for this stuff. So I am the university guy. And then I hired a couple of other people and became the university guys. And that's kind of it.
David, I know I want to put a little plug. You have the legendary podcast. How can our viewers right now find your podcast?
In all the kind of podcasty places. Spotify, I think, is dominating, but on Google Podcasts and iTunes and all that kind of stuff. Always enjoy it. You're welcome back. We need to have you back some point soon, but yes, the University Guy podcast, where we try and sort of delve into topics, either into interesting people from the world of international higher education, so lots of mutual friends and that, or we delve into a topic. So just putting the finishing touches one on IB courses as a way of applying to the UK as opposed to the IB diploma. But with things about studying India, studying Italy, studying Germany, it's a labour of love. If someone really wants a lot of fun, listen to episode 50 when my eldest daughter decides that she's going to take over the podcast. If you want to know what's coming your way in about 8 years' time when she decides to head into the university world, have a listen to that one.
So for those of us watching, listen to his voice, close your eyes. When I listen to your podcast, they're really cool. They're very interesting. Usually I'm driving on I-95 from Boca Raton to Miami and so forth. I'm listening. So I welcome everybody to listen to your podcast. This live will be housed on IGTV. This is also going to be housed on YouTube. David, we got to go. We're running out of time. Any words?
My pleasure, man. Always. No, I mean, everybody, you've got a really great counselor here. Juan Camilo is extraordinarily well regarded. I can say this because he's always quite shy. He's a very well regarded counselor. Please do contact him if you want to get hold of me, universityguys.com as well. And all the friends and counsellors here. It's lovely to see your names coming up. I wish we could all be sharing a cold beverage somewhere all together very soon. So, Juan Camilo, thank you for what you do on this. It's great to be able to connect with people. I just hope that we can do it and have a hug and maybe a drink with a little umbrella in it at some point very soon.
I can't wait to see you guys. I really can't wait. Thank you so much. You're doing a great job. You're branding and you're really good, man, at what you do. And our colleagues that are watching here from around the world, we are a very close community. So thank you everybody for watching. This is Juan Catamayo, JCT for Education for you. Buenas noches, David. Go to bed.
Thanks, man. Take care, everybody.
Goodbye. Take care, guys.
Bye.
Bye.